Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
A love story that began in high school rekindles many years later. However, betrayal enters the picture and leads to a riveting love triangle. In this episode, we will unravel the heartbreaking story of Bria Issac, a 28-year-old independent, generous, caring, and goal-oriented person. What happened to Bria, and what happens when love becomes fatal? This is the Fatal Attraction Podcast with Murder in Midtown.
She was a hard-working young woman with her eyes on the future.
She was so independent.
She was determined.
She worked 2 jobs.
But there was only one man for her.
She just was so in love with him.
It was her first relationship.
And unfortunately, it would also be her last.
Her mother found the body.
After that, I don't remember anything.
It was so heartbreaking.
But is her death a random act of senseless violence?
That has always been a high crime area.
The investigation will reveal a deadly deception.
Some people are just so greedy.
She was blind. She couldn't see it.
October 15th, 2016. It's Saturday night in Memphis, Tennessee, a city famous for the blues.
It has a very homegrown vibe to it. Isaac Hayes, B.B. King, all of the greats, including Elvis. This is a city which nurtures music.
However, there's more to this city of 600,000 than Beale Street and Graceland, especially in Midtown Memphis.
I've lived over in that area all of my life, and that has always been a high crime area since I was a little girl.
On this fall evening, a troubling sensation comes over Melissa Issac, who hasn't heard from her daughter, 28-year-old Bria Issac, for more than 48 hours.
She always called me every morning, every evening, just called me all the time. And I knew something was wrong because I hadn't heard from her.
When we was calling the phone was going to voicemail, and it's like unnormal for Bria.
Bria hadn't been into work either.
Bria's mom had spoken to the manager at the restaurant where she worked. She said Bria left for lunch on Thursday and never came back.
So I then went over to her house.
It's around 8 p.m. when Melissa Issac pulls up outside her daughter's apartment in Midtown. When Bria's mother arrives, she knocks on the door.
Bria!
And finds it unlocked.
There's a couch pushed up against the door, blocking it, but Bria's mother is determined.
Melissa was able to squeeze in through the door.
Bria, are you here?
The kitchen, the living room, and the bedroom are all empty.
I'm pretty sure she sensed that something was off. Bria!
But little will prepare Bria's mom for what she'll find inside her daughter's bathroom.
Bria?
28-year-old Bria Issac wasn't the type to go looking for trouble.
She stayed to herself mostly. She didn't drink, she didn't do drugs or anything. She was just sweet, nice, and honest, and quiet.
She was like a home person. Even though she was this quiet person, she also had that funny side, but it's around people she's comfortable around. That's just the spirit she brings. Like when she walks into the room, it brightens up. You know, it just brightens up the day. That's the type of person she was.
When she wasn't spending time with her family, Bria was trying to get ahead.
Basically, she didn't do anything but work. And she was a very determined hard worker. She would go in on her off days. She was very determined to try to have things in her life.
And she wasn't afraid of the responsibility, willing to take on new jobs that when needed, new tasks, and she had goals.
She was an independent woman. She didn't look for no handouts, didn't look for anyone to do anything for her.
But for all her independence, Bria was generous, especially with those she loved.
She loved taking care of people. She loved helping people.
She'll help anybody, give a shirt off her back or anything. Anything she could help you with, she would do it. She loves to give.
She made sure that she gave whatever she could to those that she loved.
Between work and family, Bria had room in her life for one more person, her longtime boyfriend, 29-year-old Joshua Fisher.
Bria met Joshua in high school. They were both young. They fell in love.
He was the only guy that she had been with, and she developed true love for him.
Everything was great. They were young and in love. It appeared this is the man that Bria wanted to spend the rest of her life with.
For 10 years, the couple dated on and off while Bria continued to work and save, eventually moving out of her mother's house.
She ended up getting her own place where she can, get out on her own.
She had it over there on Midtown. And she was paying the rent, paying the light bill, and everything. Working 2 jobs.
She was independent. She made her own money.
Despite her desire to take her relationship with Josh to the next level, Josh wasn't willing to commit.
Bria wanted to be loved. She wanted acceptance and she wanted love. That is what she was looking for. I guess she just thought she could change him.
Bria's love for Joshua was put to the ultimate test when the couple broke up in 2011. Shortly thereafter, Joshua began a relationship with 29-year-old Keisha Norris.
That relationship evolved very quickly, and it really was a heartbreak for Bria, especially when Joshua and Keisha started having children.
But Bria couldn't shake her feelings for Joshua. And when Joshua wanted to reunite with Bria in the spring of 2013, she decided she was willing to give their relationship another shot.
Joshua and Keisha had children together, and Bria, being the loving, giving person that she is, she even took in their children as her own.
She even helped with his kids. She'll go pick the kids up, take them shopping, buy them things on the holidays.
Being with Joshua again was everything Bria wanted. While Bria seemed to be on the path to happiness with Joshua, her family would soon be consumed by tragedy. On October 15th, 2016, Bria Issac's mother has just walked in to find a horrific scene.
My baby was slumped over the bathtub.
Melissa began to scream, crying out of heartbreak, crying out of the rage of discovering the death of her daughter.
The screams can be heard throughout the complex, and Memphis PD receives multiple 911 calls.
Memphis 911, do you need police, fire, or an ambulance?
It may be an ambulance and police. A woman's on a balcony on Monroe in an apartment complex. She's yelling, "My baby's dead, my baby's dead."
We need somebody over here now. Somebody upstairs is dead. Get a whole lot of people. It's something bad happening.
There are thin lines between love, hate, and murder. More secrets are revealed once we return with more Fatal Attraction.
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
In October of 2016, 28-year-old Bria Issac was working 2 jobs and keeping her eye on the future with her boyfriend, Joshua Fisher.
She just was working so much, trying to have nice things.
She been had her own place for a while. She didn't like staying on any one period.
She began to work and live her best life and not only had goals, but also wanted to make sure that even Joshua was taken care of.
But Bria's plans would never come to fruition.
On Thursday, October 13th, 2016, Bria failed to return to work after her lunch break.
For the next 2 days, her family were calling her, texting her, trying to find out where was Bria.
Bria! And then on Saturday, Bria's mom went to her apartment, and that's where she found Bria dead in the bathtub.
After that, I don't remember anything.
The neighbors, they called 911 because they didn't know what was going on.
We need somebody over here now. Somebody upstairs is dead. Get a whole lot of people. It's something bad happening.
It was obvious to Bria's mother, Melissa, that her daughter had been murdered.
Police arrive a few minutes later to a chaotic scene.
I didn't imagine walking into a situation like that.
The rest of Bria's family has arrived, and the police have the difficult task of trying to preserve a crime scene.
Where you going? Where you going? Okay. Listen.
The family was just inconsolable. They were completely heartbroken.
Who found Bria? Who was the one that found her? You? Mom?
As first responders try to get information from Bria's grieving family, homicide detectives arrive and begin their investigation.
They're trying to determine what exactly happened here.
It doesn't take long for detectives to find the cause of death.
She has an obvious gunshot wound to the chest. There was an awful amount of blood.
They begin to piece together how the shooting unfolded, starting with what appears to be a bullet hole in the bathroom door.
We could only assume Bria was trying to run. She was trying to hide.
Had Bria come home and surprised a burglar?
She had just left work. On her lunch break, she set out on her uniform.
After a quick look around the rest of the apartment, detectives don't believe that is the case.
There did not appear to be a robbery gone wrong.
There's no sign of forced entry, and all items of value seem to be undisturbed.
Which leaves detectives wondering, who was chasing Bria when she ran to the bathroom and shut the door?
There did not appear to be any sexual assault.
She was still fully clothed.
Detectives note there's a black baseball cap with a red bill on the living room floor, just outside the bathroom.
The way it was laying in the middle of the floor made detectives think that it wasn't Bria's. It was oddly just left out.
Could the killer have left it behind?
The police have more questions and not enough answers at this stage.
Hoping for some clarity, detectives turn to Bria's mother, Melissa.
Ma'am, we're sorry for your loss. We're going to need to ask a few questions to figure out what happened.
We always tell the families, we're working for you. We're working for Bria now. So we have to try to maintain our wits, and we get the family members to tell us whatever we can.
It was real hard. They was telling me that my daughter was gone.
I know this is difficult, but is there anything you can tell us?
Detectives begin by asking if Bria was dating anyone.
Well, there's Joshua Fisher. They'd been off and on for years.
Was she seeing anyone else?
Maybe someone new in the picture.
No.
According to Bria's mom, Joshua was the only man in her daughter's life.
She hadn't been with no other man but him.
But had there been someone in Joshua's life who wanted Bria dead?
Do you know if Joshua was seeing anyone else?
Keisha Norris. They have children together.
Melissa's answer raises a red flag for detectives.
They potentially got two women fighting over the same man. Jealousy could very well be a motive.
Did Bria and Keisha have a rift? Was there some level of argument that was occurring there? Was there something that occurred with the kids?
Now, Bria and Keisha, did they get along?
As far as I know.
They were never enemies. She even helped with his kids.
However, even if what Melissa tells them is true, detectives will need to rule out Keisha as a possible suspect.
You have to determine your victim's relationship with everyone that comes up.
First, detectives canvass Bria's apartment building, hoping one of her neighbors can give them a lead on the shooter.
They ask around to find out, did anyone hear any gunshots? Did anyone see anything that looked suspicious? Did anyone scream and yell for help?
For now, detectives have no luck locating eyewitnesses. The next step is to find the two people Melissa Isaac mentioned in her statement.
Detectives put out an APB on Josh and Keisha, but Josh was nowhere to be found.
The next day, detectives do have better luck finding Keisha Norris. But when she sits down with detectives, their suspicions are immediately raised.
Bria Isaac was found murdered. Do you know anything about that?
No, I can't help you.
When was the last time you saw Josh?
Look, I don't know anything about this.
It becomes obvious to the detectives that Keisha knew more than she was letting on.
But what is it that Keisha is hiding? Josh's involvement or her own?
Detectives are convinced that this woman could hold the key to solving Bria's murder.
There are thin lines between love, hate, and murder. More secrets are revealed once we return with more Fatal Attraction.
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
Barely an hour after Bria Isaac's mother discovered her daughter's dead body, detectives investigating the 28-year-old's murder have identified two persons of interest.
At this time, police are still looking for Joshua Fisher, Bria's boyfriend. But they did manage to bring in Keisha Norris, who has children with Joshua.
At this stage, police is trying to turn over every rock that they can.
With her having a relationship with Joshua, I'm quite sure she had a wealth of information.
And considering Keisha and Bria were seeing the same man, they had to rule her out as a suspect.
But when detectives bring Keisha in, things hit a snag.
Keisha was not very cooperative, which really made detectives question just what she knew.
She was entirely within her rights, but the fact that she was uncooperative made detectives suspicious.
Is Keisha hiding something? Or is she merely being cautious?
I'm sorry. You just need to talk to Josh. I don't have anything else to say.
Well, where can we find Josh?
He moves around a lot. He could be anywhere.
With their interview with Keisha stalling out, detectives move on to finding Joshua Fisher.
At this stage, the one name that they kept hearing during this investigation was Joshua Fisher.
While the search for Josh continues, detectives receive Bria's autopsy report the following morning, and the findings confirm their suspicions about how the murder occurred.
Bria had been shot twice. Once in the head, once in the chest. Execution style by a .38 caliber.
Confirmation of the way Bria died only adds to the heinous nature of the crime.
It was felt that she lived a little while after she was shot, but of course she didn't get any medical attention at all.
Now that detectives know the caliber of the weapon used, all they need is the gun itself.
It was going to take a stroke of luck to find this gun. Truthfully, it could have been anywhere.
The one thing that they needed was that gun. Where was it?
While detectives are still trying to locate Joshua Fisher, a look into his background reveals a disturbing pattern.
The police had previously responded to Bria's apartment on numerous domestic disturbance calls.
Joshua abused her. He would beat her.
This revelation about Joshua comes as a surprise. None of Bria's family had mentioned any abuse.
I didn't know about the abuse through the years and how many officers and stuff was called.
However, none of those calls ended with Joshua in jail.
A lot of times the police were called and she didn't tell the whole story or she didn't prosecute.
To detectives, the question becomes, had the abuse escalated to murder?
It was time for them to find this Joshua Fisher.
Locating Bria's boyfriend still proves difficult.
They couldn't find him.
Word that detectives are looking for Joshua does eventually produce results.
A tip did come in as to Joshua and his whereabouts.
He's in the small rural community of Stanton, Tennessee.
It's about an hour or so from where Bria lived. So the police went down and they saw Joshua.
Detectives find him at a friend's house outside the tiny farming town.
Can I help you guys?
Joshua Fisher?
Yeah, that's me.
We need to talk to you about Bria Issac.
Is there a problem?
News of the murder appears to hit Joshua hard.
He actually cried and stated that he wasn't aware of it.
Despite his emotional reaction, detectives believe Joshua is involved in Bria's murder.
The police wanted to know, did you kill Bria Issac? He denied it.
There's quite a few incident reports that would indicate otherwise.
Look, I know we had our problems. I had my problems. But I would never do that.
He's an alcoholic. So when he's on alcohol, he turns into a whole nother person. And we don't listen. Everything has to go his way and only his way.
He fought about everything for no reason at all.
He said that they were off. They were taking a break. He and Bria weren't in a relationship at the time.
Where were you on Thursday afternoon?
I was here.
How long have you been here?
Week or so.
Can your friend verify that?
Yeah, I mean, at work right now, but for sure.
He did state that he was there prior to the homicide and he had been there all that time.
If that's true, Joshua can't be Bria's killer. But they need proof that Joshua is lying.
Detectives felt like they had their man, but there were a few things they needed to nail down. First, did Josh's alibi hold up? Where was the murder weapon? They needed to make sure their case was solid before they made an arrest.
Okay, we'll be in touch.
Detectives head back to Memphis. For the Issac family, they now have the difficult task of removing Bria's belongings from her apartment.
It's difficult to imagine how painful it must have been for the family to be in that space. Knowing what had transpired there and not having justice for Bria, I just can't imagine.
We get over there, me and my niece, Dominique, which is her sister, her boyfriend.
So they went over to help pack things up, help the mom out.
What happens next will change the course of the investigation.
As they were lifting the couch, what falls out? A gun. It was right there.
There are thin lines between love, hate, and murder. More secrets are revealed once we return with more Fatal Attraction.
Just days after Bria Issac's mother found her dead from 2 gunshot wounds, the family believes they may have stumbled upon the murder weapon.
The family was packing up Bria's apartment, moving things out, and when they picked up a couch, a gun fell out.
As soon as the gun fell out, we jumped back. I told nobody don't touch it.
CSIs had missed it during their initial search of the crime scene.
They concentrated on the immediate scene and no one thought to check the couch.
Thankfully, it was still there. And once the family members saw that gun, they called the City of Memphis Police Department.
I said, I don't know if it's the murder weapon or what, but a gun just fell out this couch.
Detectives rush to the scene and take the gun into evidence.
It's a .38 revolver, which is the same caliber that killed Bria.
The gun is submitted to the lab for testing.
Thank you.
While awaiting the ballistics results, they turn their attention to Joshua's alibi, that he was not in Memphis when the shooting occurred.
At this point, there have been multiple stories on the news and more information starts to come in.
One tip in particular proves especially useful to detectives.
Homicide.
A young man contacted the police and said he had some information. He also knew Joshua Fisher.
Detectives invite the man in for an interview.
The guy works at a video game store that is right across the street from Bria's apartment.
They know Josh because he frequents that store.
Detectives are wondering, what do they have with this guy? Is it even relevant to the investigation?
So what made you decide to contact us?
I saw the police outside the apartment where Joshua stayed. And then I seen the murder case on the news. I saw him there last Thursday.
Are you sure?
Yes. He came to the store that day, and I also saw him on the balcony of the apartment.
This is a huge revelation. An eyewitness who saw Josh at Bria's apartment the day she was killed.
The clerk also claims that Josh was not as talkative as he normally was.
The clerk noticed that there was something unusual about his behavior.
It's hard to describe. He was acting kind of weird, you know?
He claimed Joshua wasn't himself that day.
I also brought in the security footage. Hopefully that helps.
Before detectives look at the security footage, the clerk gives them one more piece of information.
I saw him leave the apartment too. He got in a car with some woman.
The clerk goes on to give a description of a woman that catches detectives' attention.
The clerk saw Joshua get into the car with a woman that matches the description of Keisha Norris.
With this information, detectives need to find out why Keisha wasn't more forthcoming when they originally interviewed her. But first, they need to look at the security footage from the game store.
The police see the video footage, and there he was. He had his black hat, a red bill on it. No one could miss that.
The hat is an exact match for the one detectives recovered at the crime scene. And with the timestamp putting Joshua in Memphis when he claimed to be in Stanton, just like that, Joshua's alibi is in tatters.
Joshua couldn't be telling the truth.
With video proof and a witness that puts Joshua at the scene of the murder, Detectives now need to bring Keisha Norris in for another round of questioning. And this time, they press hard for answers.
We have evidence and a witness that puts Joshua at the scene as well as yourself.
You picked him up that day, didn't you?
Officers knew that Keisha Norris had been contacted by Joshua.
He just kept blowing up my phone.
He is repeatedly calling Keisha. Obviously, she isn't answering because the calls are non-stop.
Keisha said she didn't answer because she and Joshua recently had their own falling out.
But her phone kept ringing.
After receiving repeated phone calls, at some point she said enough is enough.
What did he want, Keisha?
Keisha finally reveals what she's been hiding.
He needed a ride from Bria's apartment.
Keisha picked up Joshua Fisher from Bria's apartment on the day that she was murdered. She, in essence, became the getaway driver.
There are thin lines between love, hate, and murder. More secrets are revealed once we return with more Fatal Attraction.
Life is so much more than a diagnosis. It's about sharing time with those you love, hanging with friends who lift you up, and experiencing all those moments that bring you joy. All hits, no skips. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you. So long live singing to the oldies, jamming out to something new, and everything in between.
Memphis detectives investigating the murder of 28-year-old Bria Issac have just made what appears to be a breakthrough in the case. Detectives have placed Bria's boyfriend, Joshua Fisher, at her apartment on the afternoon of her murder.
We can guess he was trying to get out of the vicinity of that apartment. He was trying to leave that murder scene.
Hoping to prove it, detectives are pressing Keisha Norris, Joshua's ex-girlfriend, and the woman who picked him up from the apartment for more information.
And where was he when you got there?
He was outside on the sidewalk.
Unfortunately for detectives, Keisha didn't see Joshua enter or exit Bria's apartment.
According to what Joshua told Keisha, Bria wasn't home.
The detectives are skeptical.
Did you see any blood on him?
No.
And was he nervous or agitated or anything like that?
Not really.
She says it seemed like any other day. She picked him up. She dropped him off. That's all she knew.
Now, however, Keisha seems convinced that Joshua is the one who killed Bria.
Why do you say that?
I just know him. And you should have heard some of the stuff he would say to her.
One time, Joshua told Bria that he wished she would be raped, robbed, and killed. And at another time, Joshua stated that he would shoot Bria in her head and spit on her.
I just thought it was all talk. But when he gets drunk, he says things.
So you think he followed through on his threat?
I do. Because she was gonna leave him.
She was trying to move out the apartment. No notice, no anything, just move and not let him know nothing.
She tried to get away from him on several occasions, but she was not successful.
So why didn't you tell us this before?
I have kids with this man. I was scared of what he would do to us.
I'm sure that frightened her. She was just frightened to death.
At this point, detectives have to take Keisha's word. She didn't know anything, she wasn't involved, and Joshua sucked her into this.
Officers were able to rule out Keisha as a suspect.
The following morning, when detectives get the ballistics report back from the crime lab, the findings confirm the revolver that fell out of the couch also killed Bria.
The gun that they found and the bullets that they discovered were a match.
They called back and notified the family that it was the murder weapon.
Now that they have the murder weapon, can detectives prove without a shadow of a doubt that Joshua Fisher killed Bria Issac?
They needed to fingerprint the gun, see who it was registered to, and then find a way to link the gun to Joshua Fisher.
In the meantime, detectives believe the statement given by Keisha Norris is enough to make an arrest.
Detectives got a warrant and arrested Joshua in Stanton without incident.
The family rejoices at the news Bria's killer has finally been caught.
They called and said they had got him.
When the family learns that the suspect is Joshua Fisher, they are devastated that it was someone they knew.
They were blindsided. I don't think they had any idea that he had harmed her.
I never expected for him to do something like this, to break out trust like that. There was like something you can't get over.
While the family struggles to process the news, detectives sit Joshua down for questioning.
I told you, I was in Stanton when Bria got shot.
We know that's a lie, Joshua.
Once Joshua is confronted with the evidence against him, he realizes that his back is up against the wall.
Joshua cracked under the pressure.
Did you kill Bria Issac?
It was an accident.
There are thin lines between love, hate, and murder. More secrets are revealed once we return with more Fatal Attraction.
Taken into custody and confronted with the evidence detectives have against him, 29-year-old Joshua Fisher has just admitted to killing his girlfriend, Bria Issac.
We know you killed her.
I didn't mean to. It was an accident.
An accident?
Yeah.
What he shared with them was he decided that he was gonna have a firearm. Not only was he gonna carry a firearm, but he was gonna now bring that firearm into the home.
Joshua kept the gun hidden in the apartment, but Bria found it.
Joshua's story was that they were tussling over the gun and the gun went off.
It just went off?
Yeah.
And you ran.
Yeah.
Joshua did not seek any type of medical attention for her, nor did he let anybody know where she was.
What Joshua said is he became scared. He didn't want to stick around and call 911.
Instead, he'd called Keisha.
I never meant to kill her. I swear to God.
The detectives are skeptical of Joshua's story. And a look back at all the evidence they've gathered so far confirms their suspicions.
Joshua had a big problem. The story that he gave had to match the crime scene, and that did not match.
Bria Issac was shot twice, once behind the door, and then the killer stood over her and fired a second shot. There was absolutely no way it could have happened the way that Joshua claimed.
When detectives restart their interview, Josh decides it's time to stop talking.
I prefer that I have a lawyer around for the.
Okay, for that. Okay, but do you have a problem? So do you mind if we still go ahead and take the statement? You just want a lawyer for the video?
For the rest of it.
Okay, so you don't want to talk about anything else?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, you have the right to absolutely do that.
Joshua Fisher is formally charged with the murder of Bria Issac. On September 17th, 2018, he stands trial. And Bria's family packs the courtroom.
We wanted justice. And my family, we are very close. All of us was there every single day because we wanted justice.
There wasn't no doubt in my mind. We did it. I knew we did it.
According to the prosecution, Bria's murder was the culmination of almost a decade of horrible abuse at the hands of Joshua Fisher.
The prosecutor's theory was that this girl had been relentlessly stalked and harassed and abused, and Joshua was just a predator who took advantage of Bria. and not only took advantage of her, but took her life.
The prosecution theorizes on the afternoon of October 13th, 2016, she'd finally said enough.
The prosecution believed that Joshua waited around the neighborhood that afternoon and followed Bria home on her lunch break.
Why didn't you answer my calls? You dodging me?
Joshua, I'm done. We're done. When he showed up at her home on her lunch break, Bria knew that it was time to leave Joshua Fisher. She should have been out of that relationship. It was toxic. She knew it. Joshua could not handle rejection, could not handle Bria getting the strength to stand up and finally say that she's not going to take it anymore.
Based on the crime scene, prosecutors believe that when Joshua pulled the gun, Bria bolted for the bathroom.
I can only imagine how scared she was when she was running towards that door. She opens the door and she gets in there.
But it was like too late.
The bullet went through the door.
Once Bria was wounded, Joshua walked in and fired once more.
She was murdered in cold blood.
He took her life because he knew she was leaving him.
Instead, it had been Joshua who left.
He murdered Bria and didn't even have the decency to pick her up off the tub.
On his way out, Joshua had stashed the gun, called Keisha, and arranged his escape.
It's just shocking to me that Joshua, after killing his girlfriend of 10 years, could be so calm, cool, and collected as though nothing happened.
But something had happened, and the prosecutors have proof.
There was basically no way Joshua could refute the evidence because there was so much of it against him.
Between the hat, the surveillance video, the murder weapon, and Keisha's testimony, it was really overwhelming.
Joshua was found guilty, and he did receive a life sentence in prison.
He'll never see the light of day again, and her family could finally at least breathe a little bit better knowing that justice had been served.
We was all excited for the verdict. Yes, we was. It brought closure.
Give him some time to think about what he did and think about was it worth it.
She did not deserve that. Bria was a very good person.
She was very loved. She knows she was one of the sweetest person that, been called home.
She was such a sweet, beautiful person. I never hear her voice or nothing. It's not one day I don't think about my child.
However, the family does take some solace in the thought that Bria's story can serve as a warning to others.
If you're in an abusive relationship, I don't care if you're young or old, get out of it. If you're scared or what, tell someone.
If you can't do it on your own, it's help out here.
Don't sit there and let no one continuously beat on you. You're worth more.
Bria Issac's life ultimately led to a heart-wrenching tragedy that left a deep and profound impact on everyone who knew her. That thin line can ultimately lead to murder. Bria's sudden departure from this world has left a void in the lives of those who loved her, and the memory of her bright light will continue to linger in their minds for years to come. Coming up on the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
Hey.
She was pretty and popular with her whole life ahead of her.
She was so motivated and had a really bright future.
She was outgoing. Everybody loved her.
She was a really fun person.
But tragedy strikes and leaves a community terrified.
Join us as we explore the heart-wrenching tragedy that leaves a close-knit community in turmoil. Jasmine Moore, a smart, ambitious, outgoing 15-year-old with a radiant smile that could light up anyone's day, is the center of this heartbreaking story. What happened to Jasmine Moore? What happens when love turns fatal? Tune in to the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast. We will see you